Good evening. Good evening. How you doing? This is Coach Carvel Bailey, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Life and Basketball. Here on this show is where we bring athletes, former athletes, coaches, former coaches, officials, former officials, as well as those that have been instrumental in the game of basketball, and let them tell their story of how a little orange ball has oftentimes helped shape and or save their lives. And so again, we talk about where the game of life as well as basketball have synergy and how they play both hand in hand with one another. And so the show is being brought to you by Bless the Ball Skill Development Academy, where we help parents of unrecruited or under-recruited student athletes save money on college by getting their student athlete or helping their student athlete find the right scholarship for them. The show is also being brought to you by Understanding Life Through the Game of Basketball. This is my baby here. This is where the show was birthed from. And everybody I bring onto the show exemplifies and represents this understanding life through the game of basketball. Today, I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a very long time, probably in about 3 seasons. I'm going to take it back to season 1 in my own right. And I'm going to be dolo today. I'm going to be dolo. I'm going to be by myself. And it's needed today. We're still talking solutions. We're still talking solutions to everything that's going on in our world, in our country, in our states, our cities, our communities, as well as in our personal lives. And so tonight, I'm not going to be before you that long, but I do want to break down some things that I've always used because I've been doing this thing here since 1993. Since 1993, I've been out looking to change the minds of our youth since 1993. That's over 27 years. And so I've been very successful, tremendously successful. That's all just a gift from God, being able to understand and how to relate to the younger generation. So tonight, I'm going to reveal some of my trade secrets, some things that we do when we go into our schools and we do our character development programs, our social emotional learning programs. I just want to kind of go over our basic 5 core values and our basic 5 fundamentals. And that's basically titled the 5 R's to life. And so I'm going to present them to you all as well. Please share this with a parent, share this with a coach, share this with an athlete that you know that can benefit from this information. We're going to go in pretty well tonight, pretty hard and pretty fast, so that we can get some instant results, some fast results, and some meaningful results. So we know that there's a lot happening. We know the problems. We know and we understand that things aren't right. Things aren't on a level playing field. We understand that things are not on a level playing field, but what are we going to do to be able to help ourselves and to be able to put ourselves in a better position? That's what I've been about for 27 years. Just like, what are we going to do to be able to help those that we're dealing with, that we're working with, if it's through the game of basketball or not, but what are we going to do as educators, as leaders, to be able to help the next generation become better? And so this is basically what we do. And so I'm going to just kind of bring you into my life, so to speak. See if I can get some things together first. Okay, so before I get started, I want to talk about a couple things. I think as a people, black and brown people, and I'm talking to black and brown people tonight. As a people, I think that we must do a better job of stop being so judgmental because due to give me 1 second. Due to us being so judgmental towards one another, what happens is no one is able to, and I always talk about the word ego, but because we're so judgmental towards each other, it prevents us from being vulnerable. It prevents us from being honest. It prevents us from living in our true self with who we are and how we want to really, really not only live, but also how we want to express ourselves and how we want to be portrayed just in life. But because we are judgmental towards one another, it hinders people from saying, okay, this is what I really feel. This is what I really want to do. I probably have a great idea, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to be judged. And when people feel as though they're being judged, now people are in a total adaptive mode because they aren't comfortable. They aren't natural. Now, because they know that they're being judged, what judging does is it removes us from who we really are and it takes us to being something that we're not. That's why I use the term adaptive. So when I'm dealing with young adults, young teenagers, adolescents, I want them to not be as judgmental towards each other so that their natural gifts, their natural talents can come out and can be shown, which can make the entire group better. But because, and this is just me tonight, because we're judgmental towards each other, everybody is putting on a mask. Everybody is putting up a facade of how they think that others want them to act and or behave. And so I think the first thing that we need to do, again, we're talking solutions tonight. I think the first thing that we need to do is stop being as judgmental so that other people can feel comfortable around us and comfortable for who they are. So that's number one. If we're really talking about solutions, what better solution can we have as opposed to not being judgmental? That's first. The second thing is we have to look at each other as though we all have good intentions. Because what happens is we're looking at each other like my brother or my sister or whoever has bad intentions. If someone wants to help, if someone wants to serve you, if someone wants to be of service, be helpful, we look at it as they can't want to help me. They can't want to help us. They can't want to do something positive because they have other intentions. And we always think that that goes back to being judgmental. We think that someone's intentions are totally bad. So now what happens, because we feel as though their intentions are bad, what do? We start judging them. And because we start judging them, now they aren't able to be who they are authentically. Does that make sense? And so now we get a lot of people that are going around being followers because they really fear the judgment. And I'm talking about the judgment from us, not necessarily the judgment from other cultures, from other races, the judgment coming from us. So how can we, and you all can leave comments tonight. And at first I wasn't gonna come on because to be brutally honest, tonight, I really wanted to bring educators to this platform tonight. I really wanted to bring educators to this platform tonight. But for one reason or another, social media blackout, whatever you want to call it, it didn't happen. But that's fine because I made a commitment to talk about solutions this week, and that's what I'm gonna do. See, I'm the type of individual that if I have to ride for myself, with myself, I'm comfortable with doing that. So this is how the show started. We can do this without any interviews for the duration of the show. But let's talk about solutions. So if you have some solutions, then let's talk about them, right? Put them in the comments. Put them in the comments and let's talk about solutions tonight. Because again, as a Black male, I'm not okay. I'm not okay on so many levels. I mean, I have it here, but I'm just talking about emotionally. Um, things are not okay. And I think that so many people think that it's sweet because it's getting warm, because there's another story. And we have to be aware that there's always another story. There's always another story that's going to keep us in the dark about what's really going on. Now, I'm not going to get political or none of that because we're talking about solutions for us as Black and brown people. But the first thing that we have to do, as I said, as I finish sharing this, and feel free to share this with, those that with those that that can hear this. But I came on because, again, at first I was really kind of frustrated because I'm like, okay, let's talk about the solution. What solutions are we going to put in place in the educational system? No one wants to talk about that. But what we see is a lack of education, if that makes sense, right? What systems are we going to put in place for the educational system? And because those haven't been put in place, now we're seeing the result of the ignorance of us. And ignorance means not knowing, miseducated. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to stop being judgmental. That's the first thing we have to do. We have to just stop being judgmental. And then we have to stop thinking that everyone has poor intentions or bad intentions. Oh man, they ain't gonna do that, man. Why they gonna help us? Oh man, they trying to get over on us. It's a scam, whatever. Like, yes, we've been hurt. We've been hurt. But a lot of times the hurt comes from we're frustrated with ourselves. And we're frustrated with ourselves because we're really not walking in our divine power. Why? Because we have a mask on and we're living a facade because we're being judged. Does that make sense? And again, I'm talking about within our own communities. So if we know that we're being judged within our own communities, how do we think we're going to be judged when we go outside of our communities? And if we look at each other as having poor intentions, bad intentions amongst each other, and we don't trust one another, what do we think we're going to display when we go, again, outside our communities? So if we're doing this in our communities, what's going to happen when we go outside of our communities? So some trade secrets, right? And I'm going to give this away, right? I'm going to give this away, but it's the 5 R's to success. And this is what I've been using for 27 years. Again, the 5 R's to success. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Black Johnson, you absolutely right. We have to stick together, but we don't stick together. Why? Because we don't trust one another, right? And we don't stick together because we're living a facade, because we're being judgmental, probably based on the intentions that people think that we have or they're trying to put on us. And now once we get stressed out and say, hey, I don't want to live that way no more because it's not comfortable to me, then you go someplace else, and now that distrust come in. Oh, they a sucker because they don't hang with us no more, or they don't rock with us no more. You know, hey, I don't mess with them. I don't f with them. You know how the conversation goes. But that's because at some point that person has probably gotten so tired within themselves to where they like, hey, it's time to do something different. And now we all know when you do something different, a lot of people don't like it. So I'm not here to tell people how to live, but I just know that these 5 R's have been successful in everything that I've done in my 27 years of working with the youth, as well as coaching. And so the first R, get right into it. The first thing that we tell young males and females, the first thing that we tell them, the first R is you have to be respectful. You have to be respectful. That's the ground floor. Respect. If we're building this pyramid, this triangle, the ground floor is respect. Because if we respected somebody, we probably wouldn't think that they had bad intentions, right? Every person that we meet, every Black person that we meet, does not have bad intentions. Some do, but that's a whole nother story. That's based on trauma. That's based on hurt. That's based on their insecurity. But we have to be respectful. And I always ask my students, I say, like, who should you respect most? Outside of God Almighty, who should you respect most? Because God should always come first. But who should you respect most? The hands go up. Mama, daddy, teacher, granny, cousins, grown-ups, adults, coaches. And I just shake my head and say, those are all great, but that's not the right answer. Respect will take you a long way, absolutely. But the first person that we should respect is ourselves. The first person that we should respect is ourselves. Because if we respect ourselves, we wouldn't really disrespect others or do a lot of disrespectful things. Does that make sense? Like, if I respect myself enough to not get into a confrontation, well, just because somebody stepped on my new Air Force Ones or my new Jordans by accident, that's not going to cause me to disrespect them if I respect myself. Because I can acknowledge it as an accident. Now, again, if they had bad intentions, if it was malicious, that's another thing. But again, I respect myself enough to know when to put myself in a certain situation that can become unbecoming to me or for me. Does that make sense? So the first person, and really the main person that we should all respect other than God himself, is us. And if we don't respect us, then we'll disrespect anybody else. I always talk about, the person that walks down the street with their pants hanging down and, got, their drawers showing and all of those things, right? Well, that's their preference. And I'm not I'm not saying that they have bad intentions. And I do my best not to judge, but in my right mind, I feel like, hey, yeah, you have freedom of expression, but you probably can't respect yourself, because that's being disrespectful to others, because it's making other people feel uncomfortable because of how you carrying yourself. And so we have to respect us. We have to respect ourselves as individuals. Then it'll be a little bit easier to start to respect others. Because all the same things that we're doing, if it's the same stores that's being looted, all of the same, just duress. And as George Floyd brother said, like, if you respect my brother, you wouldn't do a lot of this. But there are opportunists and there are people that's really concerned. But I think if we respect ourselves, a lot of things wouldn't be the way that they are, even in times of conflict. Like, let's sit down, let's plan, let's strategize. But we got to start respecting us as individuals. We are a leader of one. Everybody's watching this, wherever you may be watching it, we're a leader of one. And who is that one? Us. We are a leader of ourselves first. And if we don't respect ourselves, how can we help lead or respect somebody else? So the first R and the key to success in life is respect. The second R is be responsible. So the first R is be respectful. The second R is being responsible. Now, what's being responsible? I always ask that question. Hands go up, hands go up. And I just try to keep it simple, right? Being responsible is just doing what you have to do. Being responsible is doing what you have to do. Now, I'm not talking about doing what you have to do. Like people say, man, I'm going to do what I got to do so I can survive. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking going back to the respect, right? Doing what you have to do in a respectful manner. So being responsible. And again, I'm talking to the youth about solutions. So be responsible enough to go to school. Be responsible enough to get educated, right? Because those are two totally different things. My boy King Walker talked about this all the time. Go and look him up, right? It's the difference in school and education. And he's an educator just like me in the school. But it's a difference in schooling and education. But be responsible enough to get up on time so that you can take care of your business. Be responsible enough to ask questions so that you will understand the why, not always the what, the how, the when, or the where, or the who. Right? Ask questions to find out the why. Be responsible enough to pay attention when you ask that question. Be responsible enough to be able to help somebody else out that may be in need. Be responsible enough be responsible enough to know when to put yourself in a certain jam or not. Be responsible enough to know that I have to respect myself first. So we must be responsible. If that's getting up, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, whatever it is, come to school 4 or 5 days a week, helping out around your neighborhood, around your community, helping those that are younger than you, regardless of what grade they're in, right? But the ones that are younger than you, let's help lift them up. Responsibility. Doing what you're supposed to do. Not always doing what you want to do. My dad used to always tell me, just because you have the right, don't make it right. Say that again. Just because you have the right, don't make it right. So be responsible for you. Be respectful to you. Then you can be respectful to others. And then at some point in time, you can be responsible for others as well when you're responsible for yourself. And then the third R, it always gets them. Rational. Be rational. And I always ask the question, has anybody ever heard it? And it amazes me, right? For the most part, we work with like 5th through 12th graders. And it amazes me that so many of our youth have never heard of the word rational, less known what it means. So if anybody knows what the word rational is, just go ahead and type it in the chat right now. If you can come up, like, what's your own definition of being rational? And I'm going to sit and wait for a second before I answer it. But what's your definition of rational? Short and sweet. Some of y'all probably going to your phone right now, on your other phone or computer, trying to look it up. I just want to know what, if anybody understand what rational is. That's kind of like our youth, right? That's kind of like our youth, right? We may not be responsible enough to ask questions or to even say, hey, I don't know, right? Remember when I talked about us being judgmental? So because we're judgmental, people don't feel vulnerable, right? When people feel vulnerable, they're honest because they can say, hey, I don't know what that means. Or they can say, hey, I've never heard of that. Or they can say, well, I think it's this, even if it's wrong, I can be a little bit vulnerable and I can really come up with my true feelings. And I'm not worried about being looked at or talked about in a certain way. But again, if you respect yourself, and this is what I tell our youth, if you respect, because it happens just like this, nobody wants to participate. But if you respect yourself, then you'll do what needs to be done so that you can better you, regardless what everybody else may think. And then if you can be responsible enough to discuss it so that you can come out on the better side. So rational, since I guess nobody understands it, but everybody is acting irrationally right now, right? I'm talking from top down. Everybody is acting irrationally, and that's not being judgmental. That's just pointing out the facts. It's a lot of irrational behavior going on. And the reason that irrational behavior is going on, maybe because we don't really understand what rational means. So rational means think before you act. Simple, plain and simple. Rational means think before you act. Going back to that, right? Somebody step on your brand new Air Force Ones, your brand new Jordans, whatever it may be, right? If I respect myself, I'm not going to disrespect somebody else because I can identify that it may be a error or it may have happened on accident. And then I'm gonna be responsible enough to be able to ask that question, right? Like why? Like why did you step on my shoes? Not what you did. I'm not gonna talk about what you did, man. You stepped on my shoes, you punk, nope. I ain't gonna talk about what you did. I ain't gonna talk about who you did, man. You blank, 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 stepped on my shoes. I ain't gonna talk about where you stepped on them, man. You stepped right on the toe. I'm gonna ask why. Why you step on my shoes? And you may just say it was an accident. No problem. Especially as long as you say, hey, I apologize, right? Am I responsible enough to apologize? And then guess what? There are certain people that's not going to respect themselves enough to respect our youth or just us as like black and brown people. There's not going to be people that are going to be responsible enough to say, I'm sorry, my fault, my bad, shouldn't have done it, miscommunication, misdirection. But even throughout all of that, how are we going to respond? Does that make sense? Like, that's where I'm going tonight. I want to talk about solutions because we understand that it can be a setup. We understand that our best interest may not be at hand. But what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to pass these things down to our youth? So how are we going to stop the irrational behavior by being rational. Andre Robinson, able to think clearly, sensibly, logically. Rational. And as I tell our youth, short and sweet version, think before you act. Think clearly, sensibly, logically, but think before we act, before we make a move, think about it. Because if I punch this dude for stepping on my shoes, right, what's going to be the end result of that? And I don't even want to say consequence, right? But what's going to be the end result of that? So the third R to, I believe, life success is being rational. People always say, you know, man, it's chess, not checkers. Well, that's as easy as saying trust the process, right? I always talk about on this show, right? Trust the process. That looks good on a shirt. But that process can be grueling. That process can be grueling. But it's the same way. Like being rational can be grueling, right? Like, you know, you got to be able to think on the fly. The same way if it's on the basketball court, you got to be able to think. Certain things just have to be in, you know, like just natural, not necessarily reacting or responding. It just has to come natural. Well, how does it come natural? It becomes natural by being more of who we are, our own self. So we have to be respectful to God Almighty Himself, but then to us first. Then we can be respectful to others. Then we have to be responsible doing what we're supposed to do. Like I just broke them down like short and sweet. But then we have to be rational, right? We have to think before we act, right? I'm here in Chicago, excuse me, right outside of Chicago, and they messed, like things are ruined. But I don't think no one was rational enough to say, hey, this is where we go get food, or this is where my grandfather got to go get medication. I don't think people were being rational. I don't think our youth were being rational about what was going on. Right? Again, we're talking about us. So how do we improve us and our communities if we're part of the problem? Because we're thinking irrationally. Right? And I get it. Emotions are high. I get it. But we still have to take time to think. And so after being rational, then the fourth R to life is you have to be ready. Right? You have to be ready. And I always ask, what is ready? Right? So in the logical sense, and you know, again, we're gonna try it again. You could put in the chat. In your own words, what does ready mean? Being ready, what does that mean? What does ready mean? To be ready. People out there looting, setting fires, stores on fire, are not thinking about the consequences that's going to happen. Thinking and moving like that. But again, because we got that mask on, and a lot of people not necessarily being their true self. We all see it, and I see it. I've seen a lot as a basketball coach. You know, you get those individuals that want to go right, but everybody else is going wrong or going left. So because they don't want to be judged, they wind up going left, and then they hating themselves every step that they take going left because they know that that's really not them. And that's why I want to talk about our 5 core values with Bless the Ball, with Coach Carvel Bailey. Being ready. Being ready basically means to be prepared. So remember earlier when I talked about the person wearing those pants down, showing their underwear and doing all of those things, maybe not representing themselves in the best possible manner. But this is the example that I always use with our youth. What if that same individual is now walking down the street and a dog jumps out? What's the first thing that individual is going to have to do? So if that person got their pants down to their thighs, right, showing everybody they draws and basically saying like "kiss my butt," right, which is really just another form of pain and trauma, right, because they're expressing it in that way. That's just my opinion. But what's the first thing they're gonna have to do when that dog comes and they got them pants down? What's the first thing they're gonna have to do when they walking with their pants down and that dog comes? Again, we're talking about being ready. Talking about being ready. So what's the first thing they're gonna have to do when that dog comes? They're gonna have to pull them jokers up, right? First thing they gotta do, they gotta pull them pants up. By the time they reach down to hump and pull them pants up, that dog then got a nice chunk of their ass. Because they wasn't ready. And being ready simply means to be prepared. To be prepared with what happens, right? So we have to be prepared if we're not respecting ourselves. We have to be prepared if we're not being responsible, doing what we have to do, right? For whatever that comes after that. We have to be prepared if we're not being rational. So in a week or two, when there's no place to get food or there's no place to get medication or things like that, the weather's getting hot. There's no place to, for those people that weren't out there to, say get clothes or whatever, for their kids or for themselves, right? Because other people weren't rational. But they weren't ready for what comes after this. And again, when we step out our neighborhoods, how's the world looking at us? And see, if we can follow these four, I ain't even got to the fifth one yet, but if we can follow these four, when we step outside of here, there's still gonna be people ignorance. 5 gems that I'm giving you. People can hate because they don't respect themselves. People can hate because they're not responsible enough to even say that they're part of the problem. People can hate other people because they're not rational and they're just going off of emotion. People can hate because they feel like, okay, I got a fixed mindset, and where other people may have a growth mindset, meaning that I'm going to get what I'm going to get, as opposed to as long as I do the work, the results are going to come. That's a growth mindset. That fixed mindset is like, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. But the people that's working and putting themselves in position, and I know it's easier said than done. But just like in a basketball game, and this is life in basketball, but just like in a basketball game, if we playing that team that's pressing, we know what's going to happen when the game starts. Oftentimes, we know how we're being judged. Talk about judgmental. We know how we're being judged from the outside. We know how we're being looked at from the outside. We know how our intentions are being categorized from the outside. And I'm not talking about selling out, whatever that means, right? But I'm talking about respecting ourselves enough to know what happens on the outside. Being responsible enough to know what happens on the outside. Being rational enough to know what happens on the outside. But then guess what? Being ready enough to know what happens on the outside. So if I know how I'm being perceived on the outside, and even though I may say, hey man, I don't care about that, but what type of issues is it going to bring me if I got my pants hanging down on my butt? What type of response is that going to bring me? What type of unwanted, unnecessary strife is that going to bring me? It's one thing because I'm representing my heritage and I let my hair grow, not me, right? But I got dreadlocks, I got braids, whatever it is, right? Like those are things that I'm representing me and my culture, but I already know how that's being perceived based on those intentions. But I got to take care of everything else around me so that I don't put myself in an uncompromising situation. So we must be ready for the thing that comes with what we do. And the fifth and final thing tonight is after all of this is said and done, after we've been respectful to God and to ourselves, so now we can be respectful to others. After we've been responsible and do what needs to be done, right? Do what we have to do. After we're more rational, we're thinking before we're acting. So you put all those together. Now you got a young person, athlete or not, you got a young person that understands that it means more to respect themselves than disrespect others. It means more for themselves to be responsible and do what they're supposed to do and not blame others about the shortcomings. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. But okay, do that mean that I gotta, again, my dad told me as a black man, you already 3 times under just the average person of another race, because that's how you're being perceived. You got to be 3 times better than somebody else for you to even be able to get in the door. Well, if I know that, I'm gonna respect myself in a different type of way. If I know that I'm going to be responsible enough to read or to study or to put myself in a situation that can best help me, so that then I can best help other people around me and it look like me, or that don't look like me but have the same values as me and mine. Now, can I be more rational? Can I be more rational about my reaction? Can I be more rational about my tone? Can I be more rational about how I move, my intentions? And then can I be ready for what comes with that? Because there's going to be some individuals that's going to not like you more because now you represent yourself in a fine manner. I went out today and I got a cut off shirt on that I had on because it was hot, but I almost went out today in a shirt and tie just because I know that'll give me a different perception. Now that's who I am also, right? So it wouldn't make me get totally stressed out because now I'm putting a mask on being somebody different. That is who I am because I do, put shirt and ties on, suits, all of that. That's natural for me. But I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to because I'm on edge. I shouldn't have to because I'm concerned. I shouldn't have to because I don't want to be another target. But I said, no, I ain't gonna put a shirt and tie on. I'm just going to the store. But it crossed my mind because I understand how I look if I have a baseball cap on and I got a shirt on, sports shirt, as opposed to, in jeans or shorts, as opposed to how I look when I got a collared shirt on and a tie, or a button up and a sweater. Like, I understand the different perceptions. But that's why I tend to try to carry myself with respect for me. I try to be responsible for me. I try to be rational for my sake. And when I can do all 3 of those for me, then I can, again, give it out to others. But then I have to be ready for what's going to come with that, right? Be ready for the blessing or be ready for the extra hate. But you got to be ready. Now we can start acting and moving out of strategy as opposed to moving and acting out of emotion. Does that make sense? And then the fifth and final thing is, man, Andre, They have no respect at all. But guess what? Part of the no respect at all is our fault. Because the no respect at all, because there aren't enough people that are sitting down having these conversations with them. There aren't enough people that sitting down listening to our youth and feeling and understanding as best as we can what they're going through, what they're dealing with, how they're feeling. If we think it's right or if it's wrong, but how are we meeting them? How are we communicating with them? So yes, the respect factor is gone. But again, like I'm letting y'all inside my mental vault and my emotional vault for over 27 years. And I have to be transparent, but this is why I've been so successful using these 5 principles. And so now when a kid is in class and they want to talk about somebody else, they understand, well, man, you breaking the first rule. You're not being respectful to yourself because you laughing at them because they didn't understand what a word was, but you can't even read. My fault. So they understand, like, you already broke rule 1. And you weren't responsible because you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing because you minding somebody else's business. And you're not paying attention because you can't even read this word. You ain't never even heard of this word, just like this person, or even seen this word. So you should be responsible enough to pay attention. They be like, oh, yep, you're right, Mr. Bailey. But again, coming from a place of love to where they can be vulnerable that next class and be like, I ain't gonna pay attention to them because it's okay for me not to know. And now I can raise my hand because now if somebody laugh, they ain't ready and they got to deal with whatever comes behind that. This is how I've been so successful. But after we ready, that's so true. When I moved to Louisiana, I was wild kids, y'all like this, and adults don't make it no better than I seen in the schools. Hey, that's true. That's why I wanted to have educators on tonight, because I want to talk about how can we talk about solutions without talking about what's going to happen in the educational institutions. Because our students, our student athletes spend more time at school and with their coaches, and then it's at home, right? So this audience is athletes, coaches, and parents, right? Well, we have to help bridge that gap between the youth and the school and the school and the parents and the parents and the youth. Like, it all got to bridge together. We can't just try to do one without the other, because now it's going to be a imbalance someplace. But the 5th and final R is renewed. After we've done all these things, and after all this time passes, we should be a renewed people. And we could become more respectful, and we could become more rational, and we can be more responsible, when we can always be ready, constantly putting ourselves in positions like tuning into this show, which is still a professional and personal development show, right? Even though we're talking about life and basketball, understanding life through the game of basketball, pick up your book, right? Stop waiting and pick up your book. But now, at the end of that, we should be renewed, because now we're a new person from which we went in. You should always come out renewed from that in which you went in. And the way that we break it down, still simple and easy for all our youth, renewed means to be new again. To be new again. All over. So I went in thinking this way. I came out thinking this way. I'm a totally different person. So regardless, what happens when we leave out our communities? If we can do the things for ourselves, with ourselves, for ourselves, and to ourselves, well, now you start to force people in the most elegant way. You start to force people to see you as a different individual. Because even though I may be able to talk nice, right? I can put on a shirt and tie, whatever, it don't matter. But depending on where I'm at, I'm still being judged. Where I'm at, people are still judging what my intentions are. And I work with every ethnic group, racial, group, well, ethnic group that's out here. I've worked with all ethnic groups, genders, boys, girls, ladies, men. But you can force people to treat you a certain way. That's all I'm saying. When we're talking about solutions, we know what the problem is. We know what's going to happen when we leave outside of our communities. Hell, we know what's going to happen inside of our communities. But it's up to us to start to force people in our own way, right? Like we have to be, I have a business coach that told me, like, you got to be able to move people without putting your hands on them. I'm gonna say that again. You got to be able to move people without putting your hands on them. So you got to be able to force people to treat you in a different way. And you force people to treat you a different way by you renewing yourself. This is what I want our youth to understand. When you can renew yourself, then they start treating you a different way. The same way if you come in at the start of the season one way, and by Christmas time, you should be renewed. After each day, we should be a new person. Because we should learn something each day. We can do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things to express our frustration, express our concern. But the best thing we can do is renew ourselves. All right, Dre. The best thing we can do is renew ourselves. And this is what I tell our youth. Let's be renewed. Now you can force that teacher. By the time this program is over with us, you can force that teacher to know that you're a different student. Now, this ain't the student that came in my class. This ain't the same student when this program started. That's why we've been so successful. I had a player call me yesterday and was like, Coach, it's hard to put into words what you do. They just have to, once people get with you and be a part, or like get, some of your books, some of your programs, some of your courses, whatever, like once they're in it, they understand it. But it's hard to kind of understand it from the outside. So this is why I wanted to come tonight, just to be able to give you guys a brief glimpse into the vault. Just a brief glimpse. And we're able to renew individuals. And now they carry those 5 R's with them throughout their life. Saying carry them on the basketball court, off the basketball court, but they carry them with them throughout their life. And then what happens now, they start to become contagious and they start to pass it to others, because guess what happens? Now they've just, and not even knowing it until they renew themselves, and they like, whoa, was I doing that? Almost like giving them a camera. Was I doing that at first? But now what happens is they start to build up a standard in themselves, as well as for the other people around them. And like, no, we don't do that. Hey, no, man, we ain't about to run up in this store. This is where we come shopping all the time. This is where my grandparents got to come. My parents got to come to get their prescription. This is what my, little sister or little brother or, whoever got to get, services. We ain't about to do that. Hey, we ain't about to come in this teacher room and just cut up. We ain't about to do that because I need to get my education. So I ain't about to let y'all take away from what can benefit me. Because again, we're an army of how many? One. Army of us. So this is what we do. This is what we do. And like, I hope that you can share these 5 R's with a youth, right? Play this over. Let them watch this again. Let them watch this again. And in that renewing process, throughout all those 5 R's, it starts to help individuals understand a little bit more about who they are. Helps them understand about who they are, from in a natural state as well as in an adaptive state when they're being judged, when they're being watched. And we come out, now, and a lot of our stuff is online, but we give the pre-assessment, the post-assessment. Like, let's see what your issues are. Let's see where your blind spots are. Let's see what your strengths are, and let's highlight those strengths so that you can become the best person that you can become. Not let's just focus on your weaknesses, because that's what too many people are doing, focusing on weaknesses of not only themselves but of others. Let's focus on the strengths that we have. Let's focus on the strengths that others can help us with. Think about it. And this is why great teams are great teams from an athletic standpoint. If the point guard strength is being a point guard and the center strength is being a center, well, Shaq and Kobe, when they was dealing with their strengths, they won 3 championships. When they started worrying about each other's weaknesses, Kobe don't pass the ball, Shaq is out of shape, right? The whole dynasty fell apart. But when they focused on, hey, Kobe can put that thing in the bucket from around the perimeter, ain't nobody stopping Shaq on the inside, they won 3. When they started focusing on the negatives, it imploded. And that's what we're saying with our communities. It's imploding. And yeah, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of hurt. It's a lot of anger. But we have to educate to help them build up themselves from the inside out. And we need more people to be able to help them with that. That's why we also help the educators. We help the parents. We help those in the community. Because as they say, it takes a village. But everybody really ain't walking the talk that they talking. Everybody really ain't walking the talk that they talking. And they sending mixed messages. And so our youth, the reason why they don't have no respect is because we ain't respecting them. Now, I know that sounds hard for some of y'all, right? But how can we respect them if we're doing things that's hypocritical to what we're saying or what we want them to do? They're like, man, go on with that. Right? Now, guess what? We've just hurt them. They don't trust us no more. And I'm talking as adults. Tell them we're going to do something, we don't do it. Tell them we're going to be somewhere, we don't be there. Tell them we're going to show up, we don't show up. Tell them we're going to call, we don't call. Tell them we're going to help, we don't help. Tell them that we're going to support, we don't support. We criticize, we judge. We think that, their intentions are not always good. So it's a lot of disconnect. It's a lot of broken trust. And you can't have broken trust on the inside of your community, and it's not going to be that when you go on the outside of your community. So therefore, we have to have some values. And then that happens when we renew ourselves. Now we got a little, now we set a standard. Now we say, this is what we're going to tolerate, this is what we're not going to tolerate. And so I think on tonight's show, talking about solutions, those are 5 ready-made solutions that each youth that can start now. Again, it's an hour. One of our shortest episodes in years. But it's right to the point. These are the solutions that we can start with. That each individual can take upon themselves and start to say, I'm going to apply this. And I'm going to be better. Does that make sense? And I'm glad that I did come on. I'm glad that I stuck to my commitment. I'm glad that I was able to help. That's it. I just want to help. I just want to help us become better. And in helping us become better, right, then I have to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm better. So, again, you haven't gotten your book, Understanding Life Through the Game of Basketball. Well, we're just talking about basketball principles, right? Talking about understanding life. And we're just using the game of basketball to do it. As well as we talking about the perfect storm, right? We're talking about our development, our performance, as well as our experiences. How can we put those three together? Our development, our performance, our experiences. How can we put these together? Right? So you get both books in the bundle. All right. Again, we're talking about being responsible, right? Doing what you have to do, being renewed, right? After you read these two books, you'll be a totally different individual. You should be a better individual, right? I mean, we should learn every day. We should learn every day. And we should learn what to do and we should learn what not to do. So if we haven't learned two things each day, a lot of people be like, if you ain't learned nothing, in a day, it was a waste of day. You should learn two things each day: what to do and what not to do. Based on what you've seen, right? Based on you renewing yourself, right? So you get both books in a bundle with the first two seasons of this show, as well as for those that's interested, for you to have kids, to have youth, and you're, interested in, finding out more about your preferences, right? Your preferences as an individual, your preferences as a leader, your strengths, where you really, lie, what behaviors you prefer. Reach out to me, because we offer, the flight assessment and coaching that comes with that. This is a total game changer. We'll be able to help us, especially in these times, understanding who we are. And then, understanding who is around us too. Because now we can start talking the language of those that's around us. We can have more success because now we're speaking somebody else's language as opposed to speaking our language. So if you want more information about the assessment, you can reach out to me as well. And our summer school, right? Our Hoops Mastery Intensive, Summer Intensive, starts June 15th. Right, it starts in a couple weeks. I'll put the link to the Summer Intensive as well as, so this is the link where you can get your book bundle. And I'm gonna drop the link to where you can register for our summer program, right? And our summer program is actually a 6-week program, intensive, to where we're talking about the things that we talked about tonight, as well as we're talking about how to improve as an athlete. And so this is going to be an educational as well as an athletic experience for every individual that plays the game of basketball and they want to just be a better, much, much better individual, right? This is the program for you. So if your son, if your daughter hasn't, it's no AAU season, right? That's basically gone. A lot of tournaments are being canceled. Some places they are or whatever. But if you want your kid to get direction, if you want your kid to get understanding of not only the game of basketball, but also of life, then they need to take part and register right here. And actually, I'm gonna take the HTTPS down because that's not, that'll kind of throw you off, you just got to go to bit.ly, B2BSD Summer School. Our 6-week intensive, right? It's our Hoops Master intensive. Now, Hoops Master is where we help parents of unrecruited or under-recruited student athletes find the right scholarship for their student athlete, and it's more personal. It's more personal, but this is going to be a much faster pace, much more intense program. Meets twice a week. Totally economical, $197 for 6 weeks. Again, as I say, you know, people spend that on shoes. And when those shoes gone, you ain't got nothing to show for it. When this program is over, there'll be a renewed individual, lasts a lifetime. So I think it's a great investment. Start where you may, start where you must. Again, as an adult, as a parent, as a teacher, as an educator, as a leader, you know, if you want to get more information about, you know, the flight assessment to learn about your behavior preferences, you know, how you behave in certain situations, why you behave a certain way in certain situations, how you prefer to react in, you know, certain situations and certain instances, as well as what's your superpower, right? What do you do well? What do you do better than, you know, 60-70% of the world? That if you just focus on that, then that'll stop you from worrying about being judgmental, because now you can really take the mask off and just walk into your superpower. So if you want more information on that, about how you can go about, you know, getting the assessment as well as the follow-up coaching piece with that, you know, reach out to me with that. It has been a game changer with me being able to better communicate with my family as well as my players and just other people in general. So reach out to me on that. But again, I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate myself for sticking with this commitment and talking about more solutions to how we can help our youth so that we can better help our communities. So, as I always say in closing, keep striving for the top, because it's crowded as hell at the bottom. So until next time, y'all be cool. Peace.